Have you ever had a time when you felt like your money was leaving faster than you could earn it? Maybe you came home from a day of shopping and couldn't account for the money that was spent. I know I've had many of these days. And if this is you more times than not, this video is for you. I'm going to give you 5 things you can do to keep track of your spending. Hi, I'm Dorinda Monique, income protection strategist, financial educator, and mindset transformation coach. I help people gain a better relationship with their money and learn to live life stress-free and more abundantly. And this is my channel, Get Your Money Right, where we talk about money, mindset, and relationship mayhem that blocks you from reaching your full financial potential and keeps you from living your best life. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a new video every Sunday. Now let's get your money right. Oftentimes we go to a store and have an amazing afternoon out shopping with family or friends, and then we get home and we find out that we just have nothing to show for what we spent. And most times we feel like, hey, my money is missing. I don't know what to do. Like, where did I spend it? And we start to try to make an account of what we spent our money on. Well, I want to give you 5 tips on how you can, let's say, prevent that from happening. The first step, and I know no one is going to like this, but hey, it is what it is, and I have to share it. The first thing is set a budget. Know what it is from the start, what you want to spend, and don't go over that. As a matter of fact, not only set a budget, but only put that amount of money in your wallet or transfer that amount of funds to a separate account and spend that and only that, not a penny more. I don't care what's going on. Don't spend a penny more. If you set a spending budget for, let's say, $100 and you see something that costs $99.99, guess what? You don't have enough because tax is going to take you over the $100 and your budget is only $100. You have to put it back on the rack and you have to get it another day, maybe next week when you can maybe account for a higher budget. But for today, the budget is 100. We're going to stick with that goal and nothing more. So the first step, set a budget. The second tip is to use a shopping list. When you use a shopping list, it helps you to stay focused. It helps you to remember the things that you plan to purchase, and it keeps you from deviating from the list. Now, I know I'm probably not alone when I say, without a list, and I go in a grocery store, especially if I go in the grocery store hungry, I tend to pick up things that my stomach is craving, right? Cookies, candy, chips, all of the things that I shouldn't eat, and definitely none of the things that were on my list. So having a list is absolutely paramount when we're trying to make certain that we're keeping in line with our money and keeping an eye on it. Because again, we don't want our money to be misapplied. We want to put our money exactly where we want it. And in order to keep a track of our money, we have to keep a list. Get a list and stick to it. Now, this next tip, I know some of you are probably not going to like this. We are in the electronic age and people no longer like to carry paper. However, step 3 is keep receipts. And women, ladies, my sisters, if you put your receipts in a special zippered compartment in your purse or your bag, guys, if you maybe fold up those receipts and you put it in your back pocket or down in your front pocket, make sure you're putting all of the receipts in the same place. And when we keep receipts, first and foremost, it allows us to keep track as we go. right? It's easy to put that plastic on the counter, or it's easy to pull off a few bills. But when you have those receipts, every now and then, after every stop or after every couple of purchases, pull those receipts out and take an accounting of where you are so far. That way, if you set a budget and you're checking along the way, now you can have an idea of where you've spent and how much you're spending, and it would additionally help to keep you from overspending. Now, a bonus is that once you get home, you can use those receipts to track your spending in an app or to match it up with your bank account. And we're going to talk about that next in step 4. The fourth step, or the fourth tip, is to use a budgeting app. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not very familiar with budgeting apps. I've never really used them, so I can't call off any that you could check out, but I'm sure you could do a quick Google search and find some budgeting apps out there. Now, I do know that, there are some companies such as, I think, Wave Accounting has one, I believe, maybe Quicken and QuickBooks and a few other little apps. But again, you can do a quick Google search and find a budgeting app that may work well for you. But the whole point of using a budgeting app is to help guide you as you go along on your shopping, right? And we talked about it already, right? It keeps track of your receipts. It keeps track of what you're spending, lets you know if you've overspent. And bottom line, like once you create a budget, if you use an app, you can go back to that over and over again, just kind of review what's happening. Now, you can also use apps within your bank accounts, right? Some bank accounts have online access where you can, as you're shopping, look at your account and it'll show you, okay, restaurants and gas station and so on and so forth, and kind of get an idea of what's happening. I know Chase is one of them. Then also, I personally use a credit union, and in that credit union app, not only does it tell me, show me things that I'm spending as I go along, but it also has a space in there that allows me to lock off purchases. So like I have one card that I refuse to use for fuel purchases. I use a separate card for fuel purchases. So what I was able to do was to cut off specific categories within this app. So let's say if I cut off furniture, or if I cut off fuel, or if I cut off fast food, and I try to utilize that card at those establishments, it would automatically come off. It would not come off, but it would automatically block that purchase. It would give me an alert actually, and it would just say card declined. And so now you're sitting there looking crazy, trying to figure out why your card is declined, knowing that you have money, but you're able to go into that app and block those specific types of purchases or specific establishments, right? Like let's say maybe for instance, I have a special bank account that I use, and I call it petty cash. And this is what I use when I'm out in the streets, while I'm working and things like that. And I'm running for fast food. I'm going to the gas station to buy, chips and candy and things like that. Maybe I want to buy a birthday card for a friend. I use this account for really kind of like that, blow away money, right? And I put $50 a week in this account. And so once the $50 is gone, it's gone, right? There's nothing else to blow off. Everything else is earmarked for something and has to be utilized with a different type of card. Because I have several different accounts, and we'll talk about that in another video, another upload about how to separate bank accounts so that you can separate your money and keep track of your spending that way. But I utilize a petty cash account. Again, I think it's like $50 or $25, I think it is actually, every pay period, every week. And then once that money is gone, it's gone. So if I'm constantly spending money at a fast food restaurant, that money is going to quickly disappear. Once it's gone, I got to brown bag it, right? Because there's no more money in the petty cash account. And so it is what it is. You got to just grin and bear it, right? And so various apps could help you budget out your money, help you really keep an eye on your spending, and then, tell you, hey, you're over the limit, or, just show you where you're spending heavy at, right? If you're a person who, have some guilty pleasures, whatever those guilty pleasures are, right? I'm not going to name them because I don't want anyone to think that I'm picking on you specifically. But if you have any guilty pleasures, like, right, or if you like to, I know someone who has a guilty pleasure of black t-shirts, black graphic t-shirts, right? And maybe that's your specific guilty pleasure. And let's say a graphic tee is $25. Maybe you want to earmark, let's say, $50 every pay period where you can just go and splurge on graphic tees. Once that account is empty, maybe you have an idea that you're going to purchase 2 tees this week. You have $50 in the account, but one tee is $35 and the other tee is $45. Now you have to make a decision. Do you purchase both by tapping into a different account, or do you be diligent in your saving process and decide, what, I can only take the 35 or the 45, but I can't take both, right? Or maybe you want to do something extra special and say, what, I'm not even going to buy any of them today. I'm going to wait till next week, and then I'll have added an additional money into my petty cash fund, and I'll use it then. Bottom line is that when you use a budgeting app, it kind of keeps you on track. It helps you identify what it is you want to spend, and it definitely identifies when you've overspent. So utilize a budgeting app. It does the same thing as keeping receipts and things like that. It lets you know when you're going over. And if you're like me and have a bank that has additional apps within their apps that allow you to cut off things like fuel or restaurants and fast foods or movie theaters, do that. Earmark your money. When you earmark your money to go specific places and you continuously work on that, eventually you'll find yourself spending spending less time in those establishments or making those types of purchases. And as time goes on, you'll be a wiser spender. Our last and final tip, and possibly our most important tip, is to use cash. When you use cash, you only can spend what you have immediately in your hand. When we use credit cards and debit cards, we find ourselves in situations we didn't expect to be in. Most times we spend far more than we expected. And in some cases, especially with credit cards, we find ourselves spending money that we didn't have to spend from the start. When we take cash and we make a decision that this is all I'm going to spend, if you only have $100, you can only spend $100. If you go to the mall and decide I'm only going to spend $50 and all you have is $50 cash in your pocket, you're only going to spend $50. I strongly suggest if you decide to use the cash only method, be sure to leave your checkbook, your debit card, and your credit cards at home and only take cash. Because I tell you, when you're out shopping, especially when you're shopping with friends, and if you're not shopping with a list or a budget, it's easy to say, you know what? I've run out of cash. I do have a card. I'll use the card to make up the downfall. We want that. When we're trying to get our money right, we want to make sure that we are diligent, We want to make sure that our purchases are intentional and we're not spending more than we expected to spend. So we have to make sure that if we're going to use the cash method and you decide that you're going to make a budget of only spending $100, $50, $200, whatever that number may be, that's how much you put in your wallet. Nothing more, nothing less. And I'll take a step even further. If you're going to decide to spend $100, break that down into small bills. Break it down into 5s and 10s, maybe even 20s. Because now when you go and you start spending that cash, it's easy to peel off a smaller bill. When you have a large bill in pocket, sometimes it's a lot easier to spend because it makes you feel like you have a lot more because the denomination is bigger. But when you break it down in smaller pieces, in smaller denominations, now you can say, well, you know what? I have let's say 5 20s. I'm going to use this one for lunch. I'm going to purchase this at that place. I'm going to purchase a cap over here. I'm going to purchase this over there with this one. You kind of be, in a position to be able to budget even with what you have in your pocket. Although you say, I'm going to spend $100, you break it down in smaller bills. Each small bill can now be earmarked for a specific store or item. And now you're really, really making your money work for you versus $100 and you're just waving around like, oh, yay, I got $100. I can spend it wherever I want, right? So the fifth and final tip, and probably the most important of them all, is to use cash. Because when we have credit cards and debit cards, some people still carry checks, not very many, especially if you're probably under 50, you're probably not using a check. You probably don't even know what a check is, but some people are still using checks, right? But if you're going to start making corrections within your financial situation, you want to make sure that you're being diligent in your actions. So you want to make sure that you set a budget. You want to make sure that you use a list. You want to make sure that you're doing all of these things that is going to give you success. And most importantly, use cash. Using debit cards and credit cards are easy. It's easy as like, bam, throwing it on the desk, right? Throwing it on the table. It's just that simple to use credit and debit. And we don't want to do that because those types of forms of payment causes us to spend money that we don't have, and we lose track of what we're spending, and we make false promises to ourselves. Most times we'll say, you know what, I'll make it up next week. Next week, you know what, I won't put anything on the budget. Next week, I won't spend anything from my petty cash. Next week never comes. And before you know it, we're going down that slippery slope. We're down in that rabbit hole that we've been constantly trying to pull ourselves out from time, since the beginning of time. So we don't want to do that. Carry cash. Leave your debit cards, leave your credit cards, leave your checkbooks at home. Stay away from the ATM. No. We don't want to go to the ATM because you don't want to have to pay anybody to get your own money. So use cash. Spend only what you have. Trust and believe you can do this. It's easier than you think. Leave your debit cards, your credit cards, and your checkbooks at home, and only use the cash you have readily available. So just to recap, 5 tips to help you monitor your spending while shopping so your money won't be misapplied. Number 1, set a budget. Always set a budget. Know what you plan on purchasing before you purchase. Number 2, use a shopping list. Write down what you intend to purchase. That way, when you go into a store, you don't lose focus and find yourself buying just all kinds of stuff. Number 3, keep your receipts. There's nothing wrong with paper. I know we're living in an electronic world. However, if you take your receipts and you put them in your pocket or your zippered compartment of your bag, you'll always be able to go back and look at what you spent money on. No more going home wondering, well, what did I buy? I don't remember what I buy, or I don't, no more of that, right? Keep your receipts. Number 4, use a budgeting app. There's a ton of budgeting apps out there. Google one, check the reviews, find out if they cost anything, and make sure that you utilize it to the fullest. Make sure you find a budgeting app that works well for you and you alone. Don't always use something that a friend or family member has told you about. Do your research, because everyone is different. Everyone works differently. Everyone has different beliefs. Everyone has a different process of getting to a particular point. So make sure you're doing your research and you're selecting a budgeting app that works absolutely best for you. And then number 5, carry cash. Leave your cards, leave your checkbook, leave your purse. Just leave all of that at home. Take cash. If your budget is $100, take $100 and break it down in small bills so that you'll have funds easily and readily available to peel off for your smaller purchases, so that you're not just throwing money to the wind. Use cash anytime you possibly can. So I hope this information helps. Like I said, I'm sure I'm not the only one who has gone on a shopping spree and all of a sudden gotten home and wonder, like, well, what did I spend my money on? Because you absolutely have nothing to show for it. You may have went out with the intentions of buying a nice outfit and a pair of shoes. Instead, you came home empty-handed, literally empty-handed, no bags and no money. Trust me, your money's not missing. It's just been misapplied. I appreciate you being here. And if this video brought you any value, hit like, hit subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell. Make sure you share this with your family and friends, because we all have been there where we've needed some type of assistance getting our money together. So without further ado, get your money right.